Today, we're headed to Timber King, the U.S.'s oldest sawmill manufacturer. And in this video, I'll be interviewing Will Johnson, the president of Timber King. He'll show us the interesting history behind this sawmill company, but he's also going to walk us through the entire process of how these mills are made and what makes Timber King better than the rest. But that's not all. We will be taken right next door on a tour of Woodmaster Tools, the sister company of Timber King, where they're going to show us where they produce high quality milling equipment. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to introduce you to some special guests, Mr. Rob and Amy Bigler. They are the proud owners of Heartland Millworks, a custom molding company running all of Woodmaster Tools. Without further ado, let's get to it. And while at Woodmaster, I may or may not be bringing home one of those high quality milling products that they offer.
This is a little nickel tour. This is our, obviously, Colleen and Michelle who answer the phone. These are actually kind of cool. These are some old publicity or like advertising photos.
Right.
This is from the late 40s, and that was a bell saw machine in the back of a Dodge Power Wagon. And then this one was used like for brochures and stuff in probably like the late 80s.
So y'all started making the bell saws
1929.
in 29. That's kind of what started everything.
Yeah, and we have some other, come on in you guys, we have some other stuff that goes back farther than that. But this is, you know, a little home away from home. There's Jason.
Hey, Jason.
I'm introduce myself.
Oh, Jason, hey, it's nice to meet you,
person.
man. Yes, sir. Spoke to you a bunch of times. That's my brother Gilbert.
So this is our warehouse. We don't do any manufacturing here, but we ship everything. So like when you call order blades or whatever, shipped from here. And obviously the front office is anybody you're talking to. But what's kind of cool, and it's completely by accident, in terms of systems, we do our manufacturing over in the cave, but then all the mills except the 1220s come over here for quality control.
Okay.
And so you have two totally separate operations. You know, you don't have the fox guard in the hen house.
Right.
You got separate guys doing all the quality control. And I'd like to say we set that up because we're really smart. It happened by accident, but it works really well. I mean, they obviously work together and cooperate, but again, you bring the mill to a totally separate area, totally separate guys, and their only job is to go through the mill and make sure that it's what we say it's going to be. Everything from checking that all the bolts are secure, checking all the hydraulics, obviously as you can hear, running the machine, and then typically when a customer picks up, we also do the training over here, cut with it over here.
And by spreading that workload out between separate people, don't let everybody get overloaded and miss things.
Great point. Like you don't have somebody who's manufacturing also doing the QC, because number one, they're spread too thin, and number two, they're going to say, oh yeah, I did that, and maybe they didn't do it.
I've been on this all day. This is good enough.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So it is a very dedicated. The other kind of cool thing about it, again, by accident, Jason, who's our main quality assurance guy, also talks to customers. Jason cares so much about our quality, but he also has a very built-in motivation, because if there is an issue, he's going to get the phone call. So, I mean, the better the mill is going out, the easier the second part of the job.
How they say it, crap rolls downhill.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So let's go back and we can see where Jason's work. When customers come and pick up, which we love it if customers come and pick up, this is where we do the training. We've got logs here. We cut with every mill that customers pick up, every hydraulic mill.
What about the delivery? Say someone comes in there and orders a mill. What kind of time frame, like right now? I know it all changes from time to time.
I mean, right now, from the time you order to the time you would have the mill in hand, is 5 to 6 weeks.
5 to 6 weeks.
Which is actually perfect. It's a big thing, so you've got to get your ducks in a row. Financing's got to get,
so
absolutely. It's not too long to wait, but it's long enough that everybody's got time to get their ducks in a row.
I mean, you got to build it. Then, of course, you're going through the whole quality inspection.
And we have two great delivery drivers who also do the training. And it's because of the training element, it's hard to find. We have a little bit of a bottleneck there with our drivers. Every hydraulic mill that gets delivered, the person delivering it is well qualified, number one, to train, and number two, very rarely, but it does happen that there's some issue with the mill.
So they're able to fix it
on site. Exactly. I always tell people, like, it's not cheap to have the mill delivered, but it's also not, we're not just bringing it and dropping it at your front
Yeah, you're just not calling a hot shot driver and say, I need this over here.
It'd be half the price, but it'd be half the quality.
That's
for
right,
sure,
yeah.
of experience.
That's-
When we
It's a
leave
little bit bigger than
your place or when you leave here,
So it's a
you've
little bit
cut
bigger than
with your
22.
mill. Like
Right.
you know this thing cuts.
Absolutely.
And that way, you know, if you down the road, you've seen it cut well. So if you ever have a frustration with cutting, you know, well, I know the mill can cut
Right,
well,
absolutely.
but let me figure out why I'm frustrated.
But even though you've cut and had that training, there's still a lot.
So much
To learn.
Right.
And that's where y'all
Absolutely.
need to check out my other videos on how to do that.
You never stop learning because you've got enough training to sort of, number one, most importantly, to be safe, and number two, to start making some lumber. But the biggest thing, and I'm sure you've heard this from other owners, the biggest thing I think that people, like, I don't care how many times I tell them, the thing the guy's got to learn on his own is that he's got to change his blade before it gets dull.
Absolutely.
Right. But I can say it until I'm blue in the face, until like they,
How do
get
you
that
know
blade
when it-
doing that.
How do you know when it's dull? What's the
Right.
right tension?
Right.
And all that's a whole learning curve right there.
And that's a good point too, is that the information we're giving people is sort of just a baseline.
Right.
Everybody's experience is different. Southern yellow pine is different from white pine.
That's right.
And so depending on your region and the wood you're cutting, depending on whether you're cutting for sort of pallet stock or for furniture. I
Right.
mean, all that, everybody's got their own narrow individual thing that they sort of have to take that broad information that we
Right.
give them and narrow down to their specific
Right.
situation. And then that gets into blade maintenance,
That's
which is
right.
a whole other side of it. And that's something we typically encourage people initially not to worry about blade maintenance.
Right.
Because you're already, let me rephrase, it's not that blade maintenance isn't important, but you need to learn your mill and how it works and everything. And then second stage is learning to sharpen
That's
and
right.
set.
That's what you mean by blade maintenance, is the sharpening and setting point.
Exactly.
Go slow, start off slow,
Right.
learn how to mill
Focus on the narrow thing. Usually people start off with 18, 24 blades, and they can either get them sharpened. We have a company here in town we work with. You can
Right.
send it to, or you can get them sharpened locally. Find somebody else if you can to do your sharpening setting initially.
Right.
And some guys have somebody do it forever.
Right.
But if you're interested in sharpening and setting, like, wait 6 months.
That is, that's
Yeah.
another option also.
Yeah.
What about the whole history? How did Timber King get started from the beginning?
Okay, so from the beginning, so it's a family company. I'm the second son-in-law.
Right.
So I went to work for my father-in-law, who's recently passed away. My wife's great-grandfather, my kid's great-great-grandfather,
Right.
founded a company called Bell Saw.
Bell saw.
And the way that happened was he wasn't a woods guy. He was a manufacturer and kind of a sales guy and kind of a marketer. And he heard about this guy in southern Missouri. Because people always think it's weird that we're in Kansas City and we're in the sawmill business. but of course, just south of us is the Ozarks, which is timber country. And so he heard about this guy in the Ozarks that had made a sawmill that would run off of a tractor. Eventually they ran off of PTOs, but this was actually off of a flat belt. 2 flat belts. One was on the back of the tractor, and then that went to a flat shiv that ran the saw blade on this
Right.
guy's little mill. And so he heard about that, and he was like, oh, that sounds cool. So he went down. That guy's name was Bell.
And most sawyers are very familiar with the name Bell saw.
It was a classic
Right.
name. He bought this invention from Mr. Bell and started this company here in
Right.
Kansas City called Bell Saw. And that was in 1929. And they started selling, at first it was like basically a mandrel and a blade and a shiv. I mean, that was sort of their first product.
Basic,
And then
yeah.
they gradually grew it to be like that picture we looked at going to my office of that circular sawmill. That's what it eventually became, where they would sell this whole kit, but you put it all together, and then that, up until we stopped making it in 98, and I'll go back and do some other history, but
Right.
then it was, once PTOs came out, it was a direct drive off of a PTO.
Right.
But anyway, so he founded the company in 1929. Sounds like a bad time to found a company, because
Yeah.
that's when the Depression started. But what turned out was that because of the Depression, there were a lot of people, a lot of farmers looking for other ways to make income.
Homestead and also.
Exactly, just more self-sufficiency. And so the business really, it didn't blow up right away, but it was steady through the Depression. They started adding different products, woodworking products,
Right.
edgers, the craziest product they had, which you can't believe existed. They called it a brush hog. It was on the front of your tractor. It was like a 64-inch circular saw blade that just was, I mean, can you imagine? It was like a bare blade, no guard, and that was a brush hog. That was a product they
OSHA
sold.
was looking over that
There
one.
was no OSHA then. There wasn't no OSHA. So that was a crazy product they had. Like any company, I mean, they would introduce products, and some of them stuck and some of them didn't. I mean, the planers we make now are direct descendants of the planers that they started making in the 30s. So then 1941, World War II comes along, and suddenly steel, they're a steel intensive business. Suddenly steel is rationed. You can't just get steel. You have to get permission to get steel. And the War Department cut them off, which is a problem. If you're in the sawmill business and you can't buy steel, as we found out during COVID, it's an issue.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So it's kind of a funny story. So now, at this point, the business has passed on from my wife's great-grandfather to her grandfather.
Okay.
He's running the business now. It's in 1941 rather. And so the War Department's cut off their steel. So he writes to the War Department and says, hey, you know, lumber is really important to the war effort.
Right.
Which back then it was. I mean, you know, a lot of vehicles and stuff had wood floors, and you know, so wood was directly important. Shipping, everything. Yeah, directly important to the war effort. And wrote a very direct letter to the War Department, and you know, they came back and rejected. You're not getting any steel. So he was a smart man and a witty man. And so he wrote him again. The first letter had been like a page long, like, hey man, it's a war, we need wood, these things make wood, give us steel. No, reject. So then he wrote like a 10-page letter with lots of sub where to fors and sub and A, B, C.
Real deep dive.
Real deep dive and real bureaucratic.
Right.
You know, sent that off to the War Department, came back, approved.
Right.
They sold a lot of mills and shipped a lot of mills all over the world, and there were mills like set up by the military in various theaters to produce lumber just for the needs
military.
of the operations.
And that's what a lot of people don't realize with the military. There is a huge need for that.
So World War II comes through, and then 50s and 60s was a crazy. I mean, it was before my time, but that was when my father-in-law started with the business.
Okay.
In the late, I believe, in the mid 60s. And so they were then selling sawmills, planers, edgers, lots of woodworking. And then some people will also remember that they had Belsaw had a whole correspondence school.
Right.
So they had like a locksmithing course. So they sold locksmithing supplies, and it got to be a really big company. In the early 80s, my wife's grandfather sold the company. It's a Foley company out of Minnesota. So for a while, a lot of people might remember Foley Belsaw.
That's why it was Foley
Belsaw. Foley, which was a company out of Minneapolis, bought the company. My father-in-law didn't last long working for them. I think it was a mutual parting in the ways.
After being at the top.
Yeah, exactly. Mutual parting of the ways. And so he went off on his own, and this was before the days of non-competes. He went off on his own and started making planers, competing directly with Belsaw. And then basically the Foley folks did a good job with the locksmithing. They did a good job with the planers. They did a terrible job with the sawmills.
Right.
And kind of ran it into the ground. And so John had this planer company that was doing real well because he knew how to make planers, sell planers, and service planers. That's my father-in-law.
John's your father-in-law.
Recently passed, my late father.
Right.
So he knew how to do that stuff. He was doing great and kind of was hurting their business.
Right.
But they weren't doing a good job with the sawmills and kind of ran it into the ground. And they called John one day and offered to sell him the sawmill business. Well, that was the original business. And so there was may not have been the best business decision John ever made, although it's worked out well for us. But just emotionally, he was like, absolutely, I'm going to buy it. Because that's the original family business and I want it back.
There was a sentimental
decision. Yeah, it was a sentimental decision. It was not a good business decision in the sense that Woodmaster, our competitor, had started making band mills. Belsaw basically only had the circle mills, so Buddy bought it back.
Right.
And that became Timber King, and that was in like '91, I believe.
Okay.
So then it kind of came full circle, and all the base elements of what this family company has always been, which is planers and sawmills. That's where it started.
That's where it started.
And that's where we are now.
And I was reading on there, were y'all the first ones to create the portable side of things?
Right.
And that was like in what, late 80s?
So it's funny you say that, but think about that picture we saw earlier of the machine.
That was
in the back of the power wagon. That was a Belsaw. Belsaw always sold, the mills were bolted together. They weren't on an axle, but they still sold them as a quote-unquote portable mill. Because people worked harder back then. So it's like, well, if I want to move the mill, I got to take it apart. Because I think back then people thought of a sawmill as like a factory.
That's right.
It was a building.
Yeah, that's right.
And the idea was that, well, this thing, you can set it up and cut for 6 months and then move it. And that's what a portable mill meant back then.
And essentially there are those types of sawmills.
Right. That was the whole purpose of that photo we looked at, because that was in brochures and stuff, and the purpose of that was to say, hey, this thing's portable. Actually, John, my father-in-law, and Don Leskowski, who founded Woodmaster, were actually friends, and they did a lot of work together until John became Don's competitor, and then they always remained friendly, but they didn't do much
That's
work
right,
together.
that's right. And there's one thing I see that's lost in a lot of industry these days, is customer service. Like you say, with everything being in-house, you make a phone call, you can talk to anybody in the whole business to figure something out. Good customer service.
I typically say to customers when I meet them, and I almost always send an email to customers after they pick up their mill, and I say, you know, if worse comes to worse, you can always talk to me.
Right.
I mean, you can pick up the phone, you can email me, and you can talk to me. Hopefully you don't have to. If our organization is doing its job,
right,
you should never be in the position of being like, I want to talk to Will.
Right.
If you are in that position, you can talk to me.
And that comes to the whole customer service part. You
right.
have people in line that know their job and know the ins and outs of their aspect.
And I feel like, and I think Jason can confirm this, we also give our people a lot of, I don't want the phone call.
It can get kind of, that's right.
So we give our people a lot of latitude to solve problems.
Right.
You know, I think what's happened to a lot of companies, when I say this, I'm not talking about my main competitor, Woodmaster, but I mean more generally, a lot of companies in this day and age, you know, is they get sold to some big conglomerate, and that big conglomerate is only worrying about the income statement, and customer service suffers. I mean, there's this great company, American company that makes waders.
Right.
And I've had 4 or 5 pairs of their waders over the years. They were made in USA, super high quality. You have an issue, they address it. And they got sold to some big company, and everything's gone overseas.
Right.
I had a pair of waders that weren't that old. They had a little leak in them. I said, I want to send them back to get them repaired. Oh, we don't do that anymore.
Oh, man.
Just buy a new pair of waders.
I mean, that's the whole, yeah.
But the reason you pay all this money for quality is for service.
That's right.
That's why, yeah.
That's right.
And so I bought it, you know, I don't buy waders from them anymore. Neil, this is Jason.
Hey, Jason.
Neal.
Spoke to you a lot on the phone.
Absolutely, on the phone quite a bit.
Yeah. So Jason's one of our lead salespeople for Timber King. Also does some service, but mainly sales. So a lot of times when folks call in the first time and as they're getting ready to purchase a mill, they'll talk to Jason. Because we're a small company, a lot of different logistics. He wears a lot of hats. Wearing a different one right now.
Absolutely. I'm wearing your hat today, actually.
So he's going to kind of take over for me and take you over to the Hunt Midwest Caves, where we do a lot of the manufacturing and assembly of the machine. Both companies, Woodmaster and Timber King. So you'll be able to see some of that, and then also go through and look at that 4000 you're getting, pick that up, and then also we'll have over there with you Barry Bland, who's on the Woodmaster side.
Okay.
Barry is one of the few people who's been here longer than me. He does a lot of the R&D and design work on our machines.
So he knows them top to bottom, in and out.
The 4000, he literally designed the machine.
Okay.
We have a couple patents on the machine. Those are Barry's patents, so he knows it up and down, in and out. And he's a guy, again, he's designed the machines, he operates the machines, he's going to show you how to operate the machine, but he's also on the phone with customers. So this is Barry. So Barry's
Hey,
our
Barry.
4000.
Neil, good to meet you, bud.
So yeah, you guys will be over there looking at the 4000, checking stuff out, going through it. And this is a thing I think, again, not to be in sales mode, but on the 4000 specific, that class of machine, that's something we offer that nobody else does, is that literally the guy who designed the machine is here available
That's
on the
who you
phone.
speak to
It's
when
who
you have a
speak
trouble.
to when you have an issue
Right.
or a question you're trying to figure things out.
Right.
And that's just something that nobody else in that product category can offer.
Absolutely.
Period, end of story.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, so enjoy the cave, and I'll drink a little more coffee and push my pencil.
And we'll go see the production side
There
of
we
things.
go, yeah.
There you
Cool.
go.
Yeah, this is our pseudo showroom.
Pseudo showroom where you.
Also where we get our own personal projects done from time to time.
Oh, I get you. And
We're gonna be planing, molding, sanding.
Right.
Done a couple tables and benches and things like that.
This is a production prototype.
Just a prototype. You ever have to make any changes? They change it here first.
Tweak it,
Yeah.
screw it up, fix it.
This
Right.
machine,
And then put it on the other mill.
this machine versus what you're getting is got a steel frame versus a gauge frame versus
Right.
a 2-inch tubing welded all together.
Mhm.
That knocks cost out, and it doesn't hurt the integrity of the machine.
Right.
This motor is solid on a motor plate now that adjusts both
Okay.
in this way. The other one's on a
More powerful.
deal, and if it bounces real hard, that motor can get cocked and
Uh-huh.
the belt starts coming off. The biggest changes is it's got a cast bed. The one you're getting's got aluminum.
Okay.
And there's no really benefit either or, other than the cost on the aluminum is so much more.
Right, exactly.
First did the machine, didn't know how many we were going to sell to pay that kind of money into a mold.
Right.
At that time, it's like, let's hold off. Well, 9 years later, it's like we selling that to where we can justify the cost
Justify
of a
the
mold
aluminum.
and go to it. But the aluminum table, it's made out of mic 6, so it's 2 inches thick. It holds its flatness just as good as steel, and its tensile strength is just as strong.
Right. In case y'all didn't notice, we are way underground in the mountains right here at Kansas City. We just arrived at the Woodmaster Timber King facility to where the manufacturing site of this sawmill business. Kind of really blows my mind. It's a very, very cool thing to really experience underground. But look, Jason's gonna give us the story. You know we're underground right now, but I didn't know all the aspects of how this ever came about. He's gonna let you know.
Yeah, so this is the Subtropolis is what it's called, the Hunt Midwest Cave Business Park underground. Right now we're standing about 80 feet deep underground. And it's active limestone. So what they do is in the evenings after all the businesses are closed and everybody's out of here, they'll do a big explosion, a blast. And what that does is it clears out a portion and they harvest that limestone that they're able to get. And once that limestone gets moved out and harvested, they clean up that area, hang some new lights, put in some ventilation, and now that area is the next spot that they can rent out and have a business move in, whether it be a manufacturer, a storage facility, or there's U.S. Mail is down here. There's custom cars. There's over 100 businesses down here. And they make it safe. You know, they make sure that it's structurally sound. That's why we're deep enough to where things are held up by these big pillars.
Down there in the south, pillars what you sleep with.
But yeah, it's pretty cool to be down here. You know, it's 70 degrees all year round down here. The only thing that does change is the humidity. It gets kind of sticky down here in the summer times, but tell you what, when it's 4 degrees outside and it's snowing, with 1.5 feet of snow on the ground, and you don't want to be out there, you come down here, throw a t-shirt on, and you can work all day.
Go work all day.
Yeah, exactly. So, then once you go back out there, you better throw something on.
Well, that's a very interesting fact of where the manufacturer part is and what all this is you see behind us. Well, y'all come on, we're gonna show y'all the whole entire process we got here. In case y'all didn't notice, Mr. Barry just said this is the world's largest underground facility. It's really mind-blowing. And this right here, what Barry was just explaining, was this right here is a safety feature on this machine. It shuts your feed system down.
Shuts everything down.
Yeah, it shuts the whole entire everything down if this lid was to somehow get released and come up. And the other safety feature is this down here on this end. You get a board that's too thick to keep from overloading your machine. This right here moves in and it's another safety switch to protect the machine and more of all yourself. Well, he's gonna get it set up, man, run some V-groove real quick, and we're gonna see how this stuff turns out.
She'll do.
Numbers. Yeah, I see the mark falling out, yeah.
Try to center as best I can. If I'm going to be off, I want to be off on the bottom side, not the top.
Right.
That be.
Yeah, so that's a whole lot.
So now.
You want to set it in front of that?
Timber King advantage. The biggest part of the Timber King advantage is, of course, our solid welded superstructure. Solid welded 4-post head, solid welded power core that holds the engine and the blade, and solid welded cutting deck. These are solid welded, they're not bolted together. We don't have movable, hinged supports for the log. It's solid welded stuff. It lasts a long time. Now, the second mill I sold 30 years ago is still in operation. That's a big reason why, because the core of the machine, the superstructure, is solid welded. Direct action hydraulics, no electronic intermediaries. Everybody knows the first thing to go wrong on anything, whether it's a sawmill, a tractor, or a truck, is the electronics. They're finicky. Of course, we have electronics on the mill, but we put it to an absolute minimum. We try to get rid of as much electronics as we can, so The way our hydraulics work is real simple. You push a lever that opens up and fluid comes through. It's simple, rugged, very little to go wrong with it. It's one of the really less talked about but greatest strengths of our mill is minimizing electronics on the machine. That's a huge advantage. Talking about controls, the other thing about our controls is that they're all right here at elbow level. Certain mills, you have a few controls here, and then you have to go down to the level of the cutting deck to do some of your other controls. Now, you can get that mill with all the controls right here, but you pay extra for it. So again, our controls are right in front of you as a standard configuration on our mills. Big advantage. Full-time hydraulic power. Our hydraulic options, our hydraulic features are always operational. Again, some of my competitors' mill, when the cutting head is down cutting, the electronics cut out and you don't have control over your hydraulics. And what that means is that if you're about to cut into a log stop or something, you can't just bump that log stop down. You got to back your blade out and start from scratch. And anybody who's cut at all with a band mill knows sometimes have that blade pointing at your log stops. That's a real world advantage of full-time hydraulics with our machine versus part-time hydraulics with competitive machines. A big overarching thing, I like to say that we're a company with big company muscle and small company attitude. When you call our offices, a human answers the phone and puts your call where it needs to go. If you want to talk to me, the owner, you can absolutely talk to me. Sometimes I need to call you back. I talk to customers every day. I take blade orders every day. There's a huge amount of accountability in our company because of that small company attitude. Nobody here is too good to talk to a potential customer. I am on the phone with customers every single day. And if there's some large issue that the rest of our organization is not getting solved for you, you can call me. There's very little red tape. That is a huge hidden strength of our company, and it is something that my main competitor absolutely does not offer and cannot offer. So those are the Timber King advantages as I see them.
This is our setup. As you can see, we've got 7 Woodmasters, and then
And
we've
their exhaust systems.
yeah, we've got both of their exhaust systems.
Okay.
We've got the 5-horse and the 10-horse, and the 10-horse is tied into this one.
Okay.
And we got blast gates on everything, and then on our shapers and sanders and the table saws up there, that's just the 5-horse.
Right.
And that does plenty for what we need. But I'll tell you, this girl right here, it throws a lot of chips. I mean, if you're just running one of the molding heads, no big deal.
Right.
But you got all 4 of them cooking. We built a building with sliding door
Right.
out back, and then we've got a guy that comes about every 2 weeks and with the big dump trailer, and he picks it up and use it for his horses. You just got to make sure there's no walnut in it.
What's your story on this? I mean, it really increased production?
We've got a couple really big contracts. One of them's 5 years, and it's
Wow.
a big boy contract. And so we're running typically about 2,000 lineal foot a week for just that contract
Right.
alone, plus then all of our other contracts.
Right.
So we could set up and we could just blow and go.
That's right.
You know, and all the other machines are good, and we do a lot of one-off stuff, so people will show up and say, hey, I need 50 foot of this, can you make it? Because no one else will.
That's right.
And we'll do it. But we bought this machine specifically because it's got 4 heads. But with us, we could set them all up, you put a raw piece in it, it comes out and it's done.
Done, yeah.
We typically run about 22, 24 feet a minute.
Right.
In that ballpark, but like I said, when it comes out, it's done. And like I said, if it's a real small profile, you know, I might bump it up to 34, 35.
Right.
But I've never run anything faster than that. But we were running this 8-inch baseboard here.
Yeah, we can walk over and take a look at it.
And on these, this of course is all paint grade, and then it's got a cap that goes on it, a big cap.
Uh-huh.
And then, you know, it's got the shoe. But we'll go ahead and give this to them. They'll cut that out, of course. But we always give 10% more. If they ask for 100 lineal foot, we'll give them 110.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're going to run into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we always figure if we give them that 10% extra, they're going to be safe.
Right. He was talking about with the metal rollers in there, leave them little lines. So you run it and then run it through the sander.
I do. Now, on small profiles, it don't leave them lines, but great big flat thing like this,
That it's got to grab to move.
it will do it. And this is one of those ones that we've got the big commitment on. We sand it on the baseboard, we sand it on the casing.
Right.
But all the other profiles don't need it.
Right.
But they're small enough and it doesn't leave them lines.
Didn't you say the other day you was a contractor?
I was a general contractor and I was a general manager at a contract firm for about 35 years. In that position, and Amy was a director of marketing, so
Oh, okay.
she knew all the marketing side of it. But because of my position, our position, we knew the need for this niche.
Right.
And in Kansas City, there's only a few people that do it, and
Right.
pretty damn few. Now, there are a few big companies that, yeah, they'll run you 20 million feet of it.
Right.
But someone says, hey, I want 100 foot, they gouge you so bad, the average you and I can't afford it.
Exactly.
And so they'll come to me and say, hey, Robert, I got 100 foot of this, can you run it?
Right.
Sure. And I'm reasonable on what I charge them on the knife. I'm reasonable for the run fee and all
Right.
that stuff. And it keeps us very busy.
Yeah, that's
very,
good.
Very busy.
Yeah.
That's how we got our start, was that. And we retired, it's been 8 years ago.
Right.
And we retired and we said, well, we're just going to do this a little bit on the side, make a few extra dollars.
You thought you retired.
Shit. I think we probably work harder now. The reason we started, we were just going to piddle around, make a few extra dollars on the side. And then we started doing it. We're old. We don't do the social media and all that stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
And word of mouth, it started going. We had a big insight to that because being in the business for so long, we knew every general contractor.
You already had the connections.
We knew every connection.
Knew the right people.
And if I didn't know them, she knew them.
Right.
So I knew all the general managers and owners, and she did too, because she'd go in and market them and whatnot. But I knew all the project managers, all
Right.
the field guys. And I knew, and she knew, the ones that I didn't, like I said. And when we first did this, we just went out and we would call the owner of, XYZ construction company and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We want to come talk to you. And he'd say, okay. And we would go into one of their meetings and sit down and say, all right, guys, here's our cards. This is what we do. We've known the owner for 30 years, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And many times before we could get out of that meeting, we had jobs.
You already had a job.
We had kind of a leg up in that respect because we had the connection.
Right.
So we went for me and Amy, and then we hired one guy, and then we hired another guy, and then pretty soon we're at 8 guys. And then me and Amy, it's like,
Yeah.
So much for just to make a few dollars.
That's right.
I will tell you, we used to do a lot of custom cabinetry work, a ton of it. It was big money that came in the shop.
Right.
A lot of big money was coming in, but we weren't making money. The margin's so thin there. You make a big kitchen, but the time involved and the space involved. So we completely restructured from that. I mean, we'll still do it from old time clients.
Right.
If they want a few cabinets, we'll make them.
Right.
We just did a beautiful one, it was last week, but typically we just run the trim. It's a much better mark.
Right.
It's smaller, you're in and out. They pay you right on the spot.
Absolutely.
Because that's the way we're set up.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
deliver, they pay us.
That's right. I'm glad I talked to you about come and get that machine. You know what
I'm
I mean?
glad you did it. I don't think you won't regret it. Some things I can tell you though, when you set them up, make sure that you make a pattern. It takes a long time to get everything really dialed in.
Right.
But once you get it and you have a pattern, you throw this dude in there, slide your knife to it, you can see that's where the side knife cuts.
Right.
That's where that side knife cuts. The profile's there. You have to have a long enough pattern for that machine.
Right.
Set it in there, slide everything up till it bumps it, you're done. And we do it on every single one.
36 inches, something like that?
Yeah, that's typically what we run. This one here, now this is a chatter, I was mashing this
Right.
down, but it just shows that this is a cap actually for that baseboard in there.
All right.
That cap sets on that baseboard. We just set it in there, it touches it, you're done.
Done.
There ain't no measuring, there ain't none of that crap. The next thing I want to show you on this that will really help you time-wise, this is something that happens on this machine. Not on little profiles, but big profiles. When you're running big 8-inch stuff, constantly pushing on that.
Right.
And these are the only 2 screws that hold that. Now they're getting ready to change that, I think, in some of the,
He is.
yeah, in the newer models.
Yes.
He's
I
gonna do
have the one I got is just like this one.
it. This is what you need to make.
Some backboards.
Yep, all of them. So this is for my 8-inch baseboard, 2nd and 3rd floor only. All I do is there's a pin that sticks out there. You can't see it, but
Right.
But that's the reason that's curved out. This slides up against there. You slide that up against there. That way there's no jacking around. This is straight. This is exactly where it needs to be. And you're not jacking with it. And through the course of running several thousand feet, this doesn't move. So on every single profile that we run a lot of, which is like over there, every one of them's a different width.
Okay, so
Just
you got
drop
them.
that in there.
Okay.
Just loosen that bar. Drop that in there. Slide that bar up to it till it's tight. Tighten it. You're
Right.
done.
And done.
So every single one of them, and some of them I have to cut a groove in it because the table's coming up higher and
Okay.
it'll hit that.
Right.
That's the reason some of them got a groove, but every single thing that we do, it's ready to go. Now we were talking about tongue and groove and what we did. And it was perfect because I'm getting ready to run some tongue and groove. And let me show you how, I was trying to explain it to you, how we do it. And if you look at the knife, now this is for a side cutter on the 4000.
Okay.
And there's the bottom of it. But if you look at the knife, look how this is cutting deeper.
Oh yeah, yep.
And so what that allows us to do, because it's cutting deeper there on the bottom's not going to touch. It forces the top to touch.
To be tighter.
To be tight. So because you're lacking here, the first place it's going to touch is the top, and that's what you see.
That's the tightest.
So that's what I was telling you about on that knife. That
Right.
bottom part is cutting deeper.
See
Yeah.
right there? It's a little bit further out right here than the top.
It's about a 64th, give or take.
Right.
And it don't take much, but that will save you, because if these get to swelling and moving around, that little bit, now you can still go together.
Kind of the same principle as when you button 45-degree corners together, you want to cut them 46, so
That's
your
right.
outside corner
That's right.
is always tight.
That's exactly correct. And the other thing we do on the tongue and groove for the side cutters, what we'll do, because most of ours have a V groove, but this
Right.
one is flat.
Right.
And so our V groove knives, so we had to get new knives for this piece. We don't make that tongue go all the way in.
Right.
You leave it out a little bit. So like I said, there again, if it swells a little bit,
You got expansion.
you got some expansion. You're not beating it with the hammer and tearing the board up.
That's right.
It's like this in here. I've got a profile cutter. It'll go on the bottom. It'll right side, left side. It'll come out done.
Be done.
Be done. And what I'll do is I'll have that top cutter just barely clean this up.
Right.
This is all paint grade, as you can see, and it's an epoxy. It looks to me
Right,
like
right.
heavy enamel. You can see he wants 12 10-footers and 21 12-footers. And like I said, we always run about 10. That's how we do our tongue and groove.
Right.
We don't do a ton of it. Most of ours is heavy profile stuff.
Right.
But once in a while, we'll do some beadboard for like underneath on soffits and stuff like that on some of our older mansion type homes that we do. But very rarely do we do it where it doesn't have some type of profile, some kind
Right.
of V groove of some type. So we just didn't. It was funny for all the years we've been doing it. We didn't have one that didn't have a profile. This was
Man.
the crown molding, and it was lather and plaster.
Wow.
So it set. You know, this was the ceiling. So
Holy
it set
smokes.
like that.
I ain't never seen plastered crown.
Look at this. It's got crown or dental work inside of dental work. Look down
Gee.
inside of there.
Oh, yeah.
So
Wow.
we had crown. We didn't have profile. So we started kind of laying it out, trying to figure out how to do it. And then they said, well, I said, well, we can make it out of wood. And so it was all said and done. It was exactly perfect.
That's exactly what it was.
Exactly what it was. We did this for them because they couldn't get lather and plaster, but they wanted that exact look. And this house was on the Historical Society, and they said it's got to be exact. We did. We just started making components and pieces and parts, and when it was said and done, they come out and check it. And I said, oh yeah, it looks good. And I've always said, we sell quality, of course, but more than anything, we sell confidence.
That's right.
When I go out and meet with the man, and he said, can you do it? And I said, look him in the eye, so you're damn right I can do it.
Right.
That goes a long way.
Absolutely.
And then once I do what I say, that's the key in this business.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
There's, in the contracting world general, nobody returns phone calls no more.
That's right.
Everybody's late. In all of the jobs we've done, we've been late one day on one job.
Right.
And then
And
the
I-
one day I showed up, the lady's like, "Your hair?"
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
like, me and my foreman show up, and I'm like, "Yeah, we have 10 o'clock appointment." He's like, "You actually showed up?"
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here.
Appointment.
That's right.
And it's crazy. I mean, it sounds so ridiculous, but in today's world, most men don't keep their word anymore.
Right. Right.
And the guy that gave us this massive job, he came out and met with me face to face, and we had a little flexing on each other,
Right.
you know, to see. We were gut checking each other. And before he left, he said, you know what? He goes, I can get this material from a big national company. I can get a little bit cheaper than you. He said, but I'm going to go with you because I trust you. And he said, don't let me down. I said, I won't. I said, I gave you my word and I won't. And that went so far with him that now, look, we got a 5-year contract with this guy.
Right.
It's big boy money. It ain't no playing around. But that's the thing, like you said, was so true in this business or any business. If you say you're going to do something and you do it,
Right.
you're golden. Your
Yeah.
phone's
You
going
got
to
to build
ring.
your credibility.
That's it. Your phone's going to
Something that
ring.
simple. What's your history?
I bought a sawmill to build my house. I didn't never intend on getting into the whole woodworking stuff. Me and him was actually commercial fishermen. I bought my sawmill because I wanted to just save money. And it was an old 1600 mill. I had to go through it from the front to the back. The hydraulic lines were rotted, put new tires on it. Once I run it, I figured out bushings were, I went through this mill. Started cutting from my house a little bit, then COVID hit. Lumber went out the roof. Well, I already had the sawmill craze come about down there. Everybody's looking for sawmills. I had one. So I started cutting dimensional lumber. I was like, well, there's a little money here. And I kept going. And the mill I have now is I bought the the 2020 mill, which is the 25 horse diesel, the 2020 mill, all hydraulics. It's a nice mill, a big upgrade from what I had. I just kept on thinking, oh, side money. Now the dimensional lumber phased out. I was like, well, I got the Super Pro pack because I bought that with the planer to make all the trim for my house. Keep in mind, I did it to save money. Well, I see there's this one other guy, he works down there a lot, and he's overwhelmed. Like, he can't keep up. And I was like, well, there's a market here. So I started making a little bit of V-groove and stuff like that. And I'd make small quantities and list it. I wouldn't sell. I was like, you know, I'm not going to stop making it. So I just kept, because my kiln would only dry like 70 boards at a time, take me a week and a half, then it'd take me a few days to do it. So in a month, I couldn't have it 150 boards or something like that. I was like, you know, I'm not going to stop making it. I made it. Once I hit about 300 boards, that's when my phone started ringing, because people buy that V-groove or tongue and groove or whatever. You don't buy small quantities.
Right.
You buy big quantities.
Right.
Big quantities means bigger price. Right. So I figured my time is valuable, and the older you get, you realize the older you get, your time is valuable. So I said, I need something to make this faster. And that's when I started looking at the kiln. So now I can dry 300 at a time and run 300 in a day or two. Right. And be done. Probably in a day if everything's set up and ready to run. 312-foot board shouldn't be no problem with that machine from what I've seen. And that's where I'm trying to grow in that direction, because like you say, there is a need for it. Everybody and their grandma and their cousins got sawmills down there. There's one on every corner. Everybody tries to do dimensional lumber. I separated. I'm going a different direction to a more specific, smaller niche and separating yourself from everybody else. That's a good So now you got the kiln, which I still got my solar kiln. I'll probably put hardwoods or something in there. But then I got a high volume. I just got the Nile 200 Pro. So now I can dry 2,500 board feet is what they advertise in 5 to 7 days.
Where do you get your lumber? Do you hit lumber?
I actually work with a guy that clears land. So I work with him running heavy equipment. And then when we clear a piece of property, he's got an 18-wheeler. Well, he gets in the Trackco, I bucket, top it, put it in a pile. Then he'll put it in his 18-wheeler while I got my big trailer, and we'll haul it. And I just pay him per load in his truck, and then mine is just my time.
I'm going to tell you one other thing. Don't be afraid to charge what you're worth. There ain't nobody else doing it. Be honest, tell them right up front. This is what it's going to be. It's going to be delivered next Tuesday. This is what I'm going to charge you. And stick to it. And that goes a long way. I've seen a lot of people afraid to ask for money, number one.
Undervalue yourself.
And undervalue yourself. Don't do that.
Right.
Just say, this is what I'm worth. And I'll prove it. And once you prove it and back it up, then people are like, oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. You know? He can do it. Call him.
That's right. That's how it works.
Right.